Have you ever looked in the mirror and felt something was off with the reflection? Not the hair, the face, or the outfit, but the presence living inside you, as if there were someone in there, trying to remember who they were before becoming you. Maybe life has turned into a play. Maybe you memorized the script too well. Maybe the mask stuck to your face, and in the rush, the productivity, the inner pressure and fear of failure, something inside you is begging to be heard. An ancient voice, a silence that screams, a presence that was never a character, just the observer. Today we're going to explore a disconcerting idea, an idea not born in self-help books, but in the depths of human consciousness. One that flows through the halls of existential philosophy, but also echoes in ancient mystical writings, Buddhist teachings, and the visions of sages who saw beyond the self. This idea has already saved people from themselves, and maybe it can help you too. We're going to talk about what exists before the ego, what remains when the self dissolves, and why this is not the end, but the beginning of a freedom you didn't even know you were searching for. What's left when you're tired of being you? Since the dawn of humanity, we've asked, who am I? Ancient mystical traditions saw the self not as something fixed, but as an illusion, a fleeting shadow shaped by experience, body, and culture. But in the 17th century, this quest gained a new form through René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. In his search for a solid foundation of knowledge, he declared, "I think, therefore I am." For him, if everything can be doubted, the world, the senses, other people, the only certainty that remains is thought. And whoever thinks exists. But does this existence really have a stable center? Or are we confusing the thought with the thinker? That unsettling doubt echoed 3 centuries later in the mind of Jean-Paul Sartre, a giant of existentialism. With a mind sharp as a blade, Sartre looked inward and found something disturbing. The I, the one we believe we are, is not a solid entity. It is a creation of consciousness, an image, a reflection, a mask. To him, consciousness is not a thing. It's not a substance. It's an active void that perceives, imagines, chooses, and most of all, transcends itself. Sartre said we are like lanterns. We project light onto the world and onto ourselves. But we never see the lantern itself. And here's the secret. The self is not the owner of consciousness. It is created by it. It's as if the mind, when observing itself, sketches a draft of who we are. That draft becomes name, ID, number, profession, zodiac sign, childhood trauma, Instagram feed, but it's all surface. Mystical traditions intuited this millennia ago. In Advaita Vedanta, for example, they taught, "You are not the body. You are not the mind. You are the silent witness." In Buddhism, there's anatta, the non-self, a pillar of spiritual liberation. Even in ancient Hermeticism, the self is described as fluid, impermanent, needing purification for the inner flame to emerge. Sartre, unknowingly, danced with the same ghosts. He revealed that what we call self may be nothing more than a reflection in the mirror of consciousness, and that the true center of existence is not a character, it is the gaze behind the eyes. Imagine consciousness as a dark stage. At the center, there is a single lit lantern. It silently rotates, illuminating everything around. Thoughts, memories, sounds, images, pains, desires. But it never lights itself. It is the source of light. It is awareness. Now, a question arises. Who's holding the lantern? The most common answer would be me. But who is this me? If you stop right now and try to see who you are, what appears? Maybe a mental image, your face, your body. Maybe your story. I'm so-and-so's child, I do this, I like coffee. But notice, all of that are objects of consciousness. They are not consciousness itself. You see the face, so you're not the face. You remember your story, why, so you're not the story. Sartre invites us to try a simple but devastating mental trick. Try to find the I, and you'll realize it slips away like smoke between your fingers. Consciousness is not a thing. It is an opening, a flow, a creative void, and the self is just a temporary form appearing in that flow, like foam atop a wave. The ancients knew this. In Zen tradition, there's a famous koan: "Show me your original face before your parents were born." You can't answer with words because the real you can't be named. It can only be lived, and that's when things start to shift. Because if the self isn't fixed, if it's a temporary construction, then maybe it's not you that's tired of life. Maybe it's just the character, the role, the mask. Maybe something inside you is calling for help. Not for more achievements, not for more answers, but for a return to silence, to presence, to the now. And in this now, there's no need to be anyone, just be. Why does the idea that the self isn't real scare us so much? Because we've been taught that being someone is all we've got. Since childhood, we're asked, what will you be when you grow up? As if the answer were a destiny, as if life were a form to be filled, with title, with name, with accomplishments. But what if the truth is the opposite? What if the greatest freedom is to stop being someone specific and just be? Most people don't realize it, but living under the rule of the ego is like being trapped in a hall of mirrors. Every step reveals a new version of yourself, and none are real. You run to please, to improve, to find yourself. But the more you run, the further you move from who you've always been. Sartre said the ego is a narrative invention, the mind's attempt to freeze something that, by nature, flows, and mystics knew this forever. In Sufism, the ego must be annihilated so the divine may emerge. In Buddhism, attachment to the self is the root of suffering. In spiritual alchemy, the ego is lead that must be transmuted into gold, not destroyed, but purified. But ego is cunning. It whispers, "Without me, you are nothing." So we fight. We resist. We cling to suffering. Because in a way, it's still our suffering. Like the scorpion that stings, knowing it will drown with the frog. The ego prefers the wreck to surrender. But there's a way out. A crack of light in the theater of identities. It appears when you're tired, not of living, but of performing. When the role no longer makes sense. When the performance weighs more than life itself. When you look in the mirror and don't recognize yourself anymore. In that moment, something within you awakens. Something that's always been there. Watching, waiting, silent. That is consciousness. The creative void. The space where the ego dances, but isn't everything. And realizing this changes everything. How can we live without being swallowed by the character? How do we abandon the self without getting lost? The answer isn't in a manual or in a miracle. It's in small rituals, daily portals to the now. 1. Return to presence. Each day, stop everything for a few minutes. Sit in silence. Don't meditate, don't think, don't try to reach a mystical state, just feel your body. Observe the breath. Listen to the sounds. Let awareness be a free lantern, without trying to shine on the ego. This simple practice unmasks the false self running all day and reveals the space behind it. 2. The sacred mirror. Look at yourself in the mirror, not the face, but the eyes. Look deeply, as if gazing into the night sky. Mentally repeat, I am the presence behind the eyes. Nothing needs fixing. This practice, used in some esoteric lineages, activates the recognition of formless awareness. 3. Persona deconstruction. Pick one of your masks, maybe the tireless professional, the perfect child, or the strong one who never cries. Write it a farewell letter. Thank it, release it, let it go. Symbolic acts have power. In inner alchemy, This is called initiatory death. The death of the ego is the birth of the awakened soul. Or micro-magic of the now. Carry a small object, a stone, a ring, a feather. Every time you touch it, take a deep breath and ask, who is feeling this right now? This gesture anchors you in the present, and over time, the now stops being a concept and becomes home. 5. Practice gentle disenchantment. Don't believe everything you think. The ego loves to replay old stories. You're not enough. Nobody cares. You'll fail. Whenever these thoughts come, tell yourself, the old character is back. Naming the ego is the first step toward disidentifying from it. Remember, you don't need to kill the ego. It's a tool, not the master. Let it exist, but don't let it lead. You are greater, older, quieter, and you've always been here. You are not your tired voice, nor your broken story, nor the roles you've learned to play so hard. You are the space between one thought and another, the pause between the words, the silence that listens to the world, and that has never been tired. Sartre showed us the ego is a mental invention, but you are not an invention. You are the awareness that perceives, the light before form, the emptiness before the idea. And if all this is true, maybe your exhaustion is not your enemy. Maybe it's an invitation, a call from the soul to stop pretending, to take off the mask. 2, for the first time in a long time, just be. You don't need to conquer the world to be real. You already are. The very fact you realize this now is proof of it. So next time you look in the mirror and think, I can't stand being me anymore, remember, maybe it's just the character that's come to an end. And behind it, you were always there. The silent presence, the unchanging observer, the spark of the divine. And that never gets tired of living. If this message touched something within you, I invite you to go even deeper into the staircase of self-knowledge. The mind cave is just beginning, and you are welcome to explore its mysteries with me. Like, comment, share,